Hi, everyone. This is Jaime Alejandro with the Arts Calling podcast, bringing you down-to-earth conversations with independent creatives in the literary, visual, and performing arts. I have one quick announcement for you before we get the ball rolling. I don't know if you're aware, but the Arts Calling Network is now in full swing. This fall, not only do we have outstanding conversations with amazing creatives in the next couple of weeks, next month, but I'm also open for business at The Coalition, which is the place where I put all of my creative projects, the Coalition Works Literary Journal, as well as the Coalitionist newsletter. All of those things together, I think, create a sense of what the Arts Calling Network is all about, which is a gathering place for the sweet and the sour of life in short form, in audio form, and kind of a mixed bag, because that's how I operate, and I hope that you join me over there. So if you could do me a favor, stop by artscalling.com, check out some of those links, and I hope to see you over there. And now, with enough dilly-dally, let's get on with the conversation here. Today, I'm delighted to be Arts Calling friend of the show, Monica Macansantos. Monica is an award-winning writer who's coming back to the show after we had a great conversation about her previous collection of selected stories called Love and Other Rituals. I'm going to have a link for that in the episode description, but primarily we're going to talk about Returning to My Father's Kitchen, which is her brand new collection of essays. This collection of 15 richly felt essays is about a young Filipino writer's odyssey toward home in the wake of the loss of her poet father. This is a wonderful collection, and as a father, I think I really connected with a lot of the themes about love and loss and belonging. She covers quite a palette of emotions in this work, and so I strongly recommend it. It's a good time, just like this upcoming chat. And now, with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and give Monica a call. Hello, is anybody there?
Yes, I'm here, Jaime. It's been a while.
Hey, Monica, great to hear from you. How's it going over there?
It's great. It's a nice sunny afternoon here in Columbus, Georgia.
Oh, wow.
Where I'm currently residing at the Carson McCullers house. Yeah, it's been a fantastic residency so far.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear. So I'm actually quite thrilled to get to talk to you again, because I feel like the first episode that we covered, I think we had a lot of lore, a lot of backstory about Monica that we were able to cover. And now reading the new work, which is Returning to My Father's Kitchen, was really eye-opening. And so I'm really excited to kind of get to talk to you about some of the specifics of the work that you released, but also congratulations, a belated congratulations on this publication, because I know it's been a little while.
Thank you. I think I signed the contract for this book when we talked a few years ago, but publishing moves slowly.
Right.
My publisher, Northwestern University Press, did a good job, and they needed time to produce a good book for me. So I appreciate the wait. Yeah.
Well, I hope you don't mind. We're just up and running here. I guess I just felt really excited to chat, so I started recording, if that's okay.
That's all right.
Okay, wonderful. So let's take a minute then to backtrack a little bit, because the book has been out for a couple of months, if I'm not mistaken. And so I wanted to get your impression on how it's felt now that you have release this work out in the world, because this is a pretty intense portion of your life, obviously done with a great deal of care and a lot of effort that went into this work. And I'm curious what the emotions are that you're left with right now as you have been watching this work go out into the world.
I guess that releasing a work of nonfiction is different from releasing a book of fiction. My first book was a short story collection, and I could hide behind the veneer of fiction while also, to use a cliche, speaking my truth. And I could reveal a lot without unmasking myself as the source of all these stories. I could just claim to have made everything up, which of course we know isn't exactly true with fiction. But with nonfiction, you are taking a stand as like the person who went through these experiences, you have to stand by what you say or what you claim is the truth of your experience. And a lot of these essays in the book were previously published in literary journals, but releasing a book is something else. And I kind of expected that people would judge me or would lay value judgments on me when I released this book. It's just that because there are so many books out there, I thought that like people wouldn't pay as much attention to this book or like wouldn't go out of their way to like attack me. And so it's been great. There have been most of the feedback I've received has been kind. It's just that like, oh yeah, I had the most bizarre experience publicizing this in New Zealand. I had one great review on Radio New Zealand, and then I worked with this editor who published an excerpt of an essay in the book about my landlady from hell in New Zealand. So he published an excerpt of it from that essay, and then a few days later, he wrote a review of the book that just zeroed in on that essay and another essay about the car accident. And he just said that like, oh, like she sees herself as a victim, and he just put into question my experiences of racism, which was so weird because he published an excerpt from that essay that he was criticizing. So anyway, it's weird how like you expose yourself to people's value judgments, because it's not just the work that you're putting out into the world, but you're also putting out yourself when you're publishing nonfiction.
Right. This is one of the issues that I really appreciated about the work. I definitely don't think that you were playing the victim, but in particular, coming into a new environment and just appreciating and mentioning some of these cultural differences is one thing, but also examining how people treat the other was really eye-opening for me. And it does affirm certain things, you know, that you feel might be true about just how foreigners are treated in certain places. But you wrote so beautifully about it because it was never one of those situations where I felt like you were like, woe is me, or you were treating it like look at this tragedy that's befallen me. I felt that it was actually fairly introspective in the best way. But that scene that piece with the landlord was so horrifying. I was very upset. Because
I've heard a lot of people respond very strongly to that essay. It was an essay that I failed to place with a literary journal, so I was like, I'll just put it in my essay collection, even if I wasn't quite sure if it fit in well with the rest of the book. But I thought that people would just, I don't know, like treat it as just another essay in the book. And then I had very strong responses to that landlady essay, especially during my launch in Las Vegas that was hosted by the Black Mountain Institute, which hosted me as a Shearing Fellow for one academic year. So the food writer, Kim Foster, was my in-conversation partner during that event. And she just brought up the landlady essay. And she was like, your landlady was so cheap, wouldn't even let you use her spices. But that wasn't even the worst part of it, right? Yeah.
Right. I think the horrifying thing is that you recognize that, especially as a person of color who's in certain environments, you have seen those characters before. And that's the sad part about it, is that it's not, how can I say this, you know, without being coarse, but there's people like that. And it's just such a shame that they are in the US and they're also in New Zealand and they're also in so many places that I really appreciated the fact that you took the time to share that with us. Even though if it might feel like maybe that's something that people aren't interested in reading about in the literary world, which, you know.
As it turns out, people were very interested in reading that kind of piece. I think it's also because all of us at some point we've dealt with people who have had a lot of power over us and have abused what little power they have to just like put us in a position of, well, disempowerment. And it's just really unfortunate because sometimes you're just living your life.
Right.
You just want to be left alone to shower, like, and to like, yeah, and to like come and go as you please. And then this person will just go out of their way for some very, very strange reason. And like, I mean, like, do these people have like nothing else to do with their time?
Right. But it's just fascinating to read about it and get a sense of what you were going through at that time, especially given that your life seemed to be a kind of swirl of a lot of different things that were happening. In particular, as we mentioned in the podcast before, you were about to experience something that was very life-changing with the loss of your father. And
yes.
The stress alone of being in an educational environment, pursuing a PhD, this is a lot of stuff to pile onto a person. And then on top of that, you have these characters, these people who come out of the woodwork to continually make you feel like another, somebody who's completely different. But not to say that that's what the entire book was about, but I just thought it was a really powerful facet of it that you were able to kind of clue us into that. I definitely empathized with it. That's all I wanted to tell you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for responding so well to that essay, Hyman. It brought me back to something Kim Foster said during my launch in Vegas, that this book in many ways is about how we at times feel that, or we feel powerless in like many points in our life. And sometimes we feel silenced. And this book of essays was in many ways a means for me to fight back against that silence, because like I felt erased after my father's death. I felt erased while experiencing racism in New Zealand. Like, you will be at a certain point in your life placed in the position in which you feel powerless, or I mean, you lose somebody whom you depended on, like in my case, my father. And so some people will respond very insensitively to that, or they may even take advantage of your powerlessness to gain power over you. So how do you respond to those moments of dehumanization? I think it's by using your voice and by telling your story the way you want to, and not the way they want to tell your story, or to like misquote you, or well, I mean, portray you in ways that are false. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I just noticed this. There's so much to talk about here with this collection, but as I'm looking at your picture on Google Meet, is this Yadi?
Yeah, it's Yadi. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, yeah. I'm so glad that I now have the context to recognize that, because that was one of my favorites. It's such a great piece. Maybe we can talk about that for a little bit, because I think it's at the heart of what this entire collection is about, and maybe it could help us set the stage for the real ideas and themes about this book.
Yeah, so Yadi is one of the shorter, or My Father and Yadi is one of the shorter essays in the book, and it's about a bear that I received from a family friend when I was about maybe 2 to 3 years old. And when we moved to America from the Philippines, I brought the bear with me. And when we left to return to the Philippines after my mom finished her PhD in the US, I had to leave the bear behind because he just couldn't fit in our luggage. So I found it like surprising that my father held fast to the memory of the bear, even as I grew up in the Philippines and slowly forgot about Yadi. Like, he treasured the memory of that bear, and I realized that it was his way of treasuring my childhood and holding on to things that he was losing quickly. Like I was no longer a child. By the time that Yadi returned to the Philippines, like my aunt who kept Yadi, I think like she was very kind and like holding on to Yadi for me in California, brought it back to the Philippines during one of her trips. And my dad was crazy for Yadi. Yeah. So, and I ended up reawakening my own fondness for Yadi because of my father. So a lot of people I met and talked to after my father's death pointed out how my dad was in many ways like a child. Like even when he was teaching literature at the university, when he was like joking with friends and acquaintances and people he'd just meet on the street, he maintained this like childlike sense of wonder that I think has informed the way I approach the world and approach writing and art. Like one important thing that he handed down to me was this childlike sense of wonder, which I guess people like denigrate because I mean, if you're a child, like you have to grow up. But like in his case, I think he did teach me that you should never lose your sense of wonder and you should never be jaded. And I think that's the reason why I kept going as an artist after his death, that like I had experienced a lot of hurt. I guess that's part of the human experience, right? And also like dealing with people who are insensitive and are like casually cruel to you. And then my father's very sudden and unexpected passing also hurt me a lot. But instead of turning me into this jaded and bitter person who believed that the world was out to get me and like never had anything good in store for me, I kept myself open to the wonders of the world. And well, going back to Yadi, he when I was in New Zealand, he would text me every so often to say that I hugged Yadi for you. I'm not sure if there are a lot of fathers who are like that. I was talking to, like, when I was in Las Vegas, I was talking to the Filipino American friends whom I made there, and they said, our fathers are not like your dad. And I think that my dad was like a very special person, and a lot of people say this too after having met him or read about him in my work. And it's something that I hope to honor in this book.
I think you've done a remarkable job giving us clear glimpses of the kind of father he was, the kind of artist, storyteller that he was. And one of the things that made me sort of zero in on the cultural and sort of academic implications of sort of being in the Philippines. Before reading this book, I didn't have the context of just the elitism that is rampant in the Philippines. Maybe this is something that has changed, but as you were kind of giving us a bit of that
it's still
and those
there.
struggles. Yeah. Whether it's something that your father experienced as he was trying to pursue his own career or as you continue to do it, I just felt so overwhelmed by this sense of the stratification of academia in certain places and how pervasive it is in that country. And I'm curious, like, how you were able to write about this stuff without feeling a complete sense of fatalism, or maybe it ties back to your father and sort of holding on to those things, like in the piece My Father and Yadi, or Little Girls, which there's a line that I really, really love where your mom says, your dad is the one who appreciated these things, who noticed these little things.
Oh my God. I'm so glad you noticed that.
It's such a beautiful line, but it has so much longing and mourning, but at the same time, it's the kind of thing that just lifts you up and makes you feel like, is this a spark? Is this the gift that allows me to continue in spite of all this awful elitism and these systems that are oppressing. And I'm sorry if I'm projecting too much, but I'll let you answer there.
No, you're not at all. Not at all. Like, I love your close reading of this work. And like, I mean, I've gotten reviews of this book that seem to project more than focus on what was on the page, but like, you're not projecting at all. Yeah. Thank you for that observation. And I'm particularly proud of that essay because I was so afraid going into it. I was afraid of how the literary community would retaliate after I exposed their many misdeeds. And after I spoke about members of the literary community who are known for their very left-leaning politics, but are at the same time elitist in the way they behave with new writers, which pisses me off immensely, like the hypocrisy of it. But I think that I inherited from my father this sense of justice. And I think it also ties in with his belief that despite like the fact that there are a lot of awful people in the world, and that like there are certain systems that prop up this awfulness and this lack of equality, there's like a lot of goodness that you will see in other people. I guess that what I'm trying to get at is that my father believed that there was something worth fighting for, that his work was worth fighting for, that like my own work was worth fighting for, and that if you didn't fight for like what you believed in, then they'd win. And I think that like some people have told me that like you're petty, Monica, and maybe I am, but at the same time, like I guess it comes from this belief that if I fight for what I believe in, then things might change. Or maybe like it comes from this belief that if I don't fight with these people, then I'll be tacitly agreeing with them and giving into the bully. And as somebody who met a lot of bullies in my youth, I just don't like giving them too much power.
And yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely the right way to approach this. But you touch on something that makes me think of, in one of the essays, I believe it was Becoming a Writer, when you're talking about how many writers in the Philippines, at least your educators, at one point kind of pushed you to reject the idea of original ideas, or the notion that you could conceive something that is beyond what they themselves could come up with. And I think it sort of speaks to that sort of brazen opposition where it's like you have to push, even if it makes you the enemy of the elite in some way. And of course, I don't know much about this because I didn't go to I didn't get my master's or I didn't pursue a doctorate, but I feel like I still understand this feeling of a group of academics compelled to tell you to do something a certain way because maybe I hope this doesn't sound rude, but like sometimes they might lack the imagination to do something that isn't explicitly their way. And if you could share a little bit more about that, because I thought this was in particular one of the essays where I felt like, oh, I get it. A lot of the stuff that we had talked about in the last podcast started to make sense because it framed sort of like that momentum that you were talking about. It framed it really clearly in my mind about how you almost needed to leave the Philippines to find yourself or to at least start solidifying your own voice.
Yeah, and well, it wasn't rude at all what you said about academia lacking imagination.
And I say that because I've had a lot of phenomenal professors, but I've also had some who had made me question everything. So that's the only reason I say that.
Well, it's I agree with you on that, and it might be one of the reasons why I still don't teach. I'm not affiliated with the university despite having a PhD. Yeah, like it makes me think too about characters in classic literary works like Uncle Vanya,
Hmm.
like that professor in Uncle Vanya,
Right.
that play by Anton Chekhov, or the professor in Hedda Gabler, or the professor in Middlemarch, like pedants who like
Right.
just
Right.
lack imagination and probably the courage to, well, break away from the established mode of thinking in their
Hmm.
fields.
Right.
I think that like these people, like they're small people, and I'm not going to say that academia is full of them, that every person who gets tenure
Hmm.
is basically like this, but there are a lot of people like this in academia,
Sure.
and
Sure.
in the Philippines, because of among many reasons colonialism, we've been handed down this system of education from, I guess, our Spanish colonizers that's like very
Hmm.
top down, and which has this like belief that education is all about handing down knowledge from
Hmm.
like the older generation to the younger generation. And I guess it's a very medieval, and I mean this literally,
Hmm.
way of defining education. Because I'm not sure who said it, but like I think during medieval times, knowledge was believed to be something that was fixed,
Right.
and
Right.
instead of something that evolved.
Hmm.
And I can also see how it's easy for like a colonizer to dominate its colonial subjects when it makes them believe that I'm the one who knows everything about the world. You
Hmm.
listen to me, and if you disagree with what I say, then well, you're like just out of
It's like tough for you. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's not like you're. That's not like how this works. So my point in that essay is that like our colonizers may have left, but we still employ their means of education and their means of, well, creating a literary community that um, that's like very stratified,
Hmm.
and which enables like certain people of a certain temperament to dominate everyone else.
Right.
Yeah,
And
it keeps people in power. Yeah.
absolutely. You touch on this so beautifully in the way that this kind of like class divide and these structures are prevalent in every facet of like Filipino life. Even
Mhm.
like when you wrote about going to visit an old friend and go to the funeral. I
Yeah.
mean, that was such a it was heartbreaking. And again, I don't want to wallow
Mhm.
on this because I do think there's so many
Yeah.
beautiful passages in this work. There's a lot of hope and a lot of uplift as well. But I think just dealing with that structure, you've done such a wonderful job of balancing that. And maybe it's just my nature of reaching for like for the tragedy first,
Mhm.
right? But it was really well handled. And I'm wondering if you could just one last time here elaborate on some of the times in the work that you felt like, oh, I need to talk about this because it's important. I need to talk about this class divide, even as you were talking about the indigenous struggles, in certain regions of
Yeah.
the Philippines, as well as the way that an upper class person would treat somebody who's not in that system at a funeral. Like there's just so much that you did here to give us a
Mhm.
picture of class in the Philippines that I'm wondering if you could share a bit like from a technical perspective how you were able to balance that without feeling like the work was getting lopsided and you weren't finding levity in it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for pointing out that essay, "The Power of a Vacant House,"
Yes.
because apparently it's it resonates with a lot of readers. I didn't expect it to resonate the way it
Oh.
has. Yeah, and it was about a very, very strange experience I had at the funeral of my friend's mom in the Philippines.
Mm.
And after that incident, I kept wondering why it bothered me so much because, I mean, I've met assholes before, and but my friend's aunt she just reminded me, I guess she brought back memories of other encounters with other people in the Philippines who belonged to her class and would just pick fights with me or my other friends for no reason at all, other than to prove that they were our masters.
Mm.
And we weren't like on equal footing. So it was so strange. And I just decided to write about it. And I could have injected more comedy into it, I guess. What happened was that.
Yeah, but I think that was the great aspect of it, is that the levity was effortless when it did happen. Like that, I think that's sort of where I was getting at, is that you, throughout the entirety of the collection, you managed to get us back to that hope. And I think that's the great aspect of it is
Yeah.
the levity and the hope and the sort of curiosity that is in my thinking. And I apologize if I misread, but like that, it's almost like your father, is the through line.
Mhm.
And that's what gives us the levity to be able to process all of these things.
I'm so grateful that you noticed that the levity and like the positivity of the book. Like
Yeah.
some people might think that and this is something that like one of my readers noticed about the book, that it's full of rage. And I was like, I'm not sure if it's full of rage. It's
But
like,
I also,
I'm sorry.
Let me ask you something, because I'm just sort of thinking about this again, not trying to project, but just thinking of the kinship culturally between, say, Mexicans and Filipinos, where
Yes.
there is this sense of colonial sort of despair, right? That, yeah, you have these institutions, organizations, and structures that have been around that don't necessarily belong to us. Yes, they have been sort of like, they've become part of the cultural identity, but at the same time, in Mexico, there's this thing where you kind of have to laugh. I think Octavio Paz said something to the effect of like, a Mexican when he's able to just laugh through complete and absolute misery. And I think that's sort of the vibe that I get. Yeah. Like, is that something that is sort of common in Filipino culture?
Definitely, because Filipino humor is sharp. And it's also like, it's very like, well, if American humor is self-deprecating, Filipino humor is irreverent. Often like, the best kind of Filipino humor aims up or hits upwards instead of downwards. Like there are Filipino comedians who hit down, and like they're not the best comedians. Like they're not our best example of Filipino humor, but like the best of Filipino humor hits up, it criticizes politicians. And I think that like, now that you've pointed it out, like much of my work, I guess, is irreverent. And I've gotten that from my dad. And we won't like hold back our punches. We will criticize you if we feel that you are abusing your power, or you're falling, I don't know, like you're just being an asshole, or you're like propping up very like unjust systems of power. But at the same time, like there's a reason why we're doing this.
Yes.
And it's that like there are people like my friend in that essay you were talking about, my friend with an aunt who was like just rude. Like my friend, like despite growing up in that family, managed to be a decent human being. And he actually read that essay and he apologized for his aunt. He was so embarrassed. Like there are people like that, and there are people who are able to maintain the sense of goodness despite the evil and the carnage that surrounds them. And like, well, I guess I'm like that directing my own interview now, but it makes me think about the other essay in my book about Katherine Mansfield, and me talking about me talking about like living through the first few months of the pandemic while reading Katherine Mansfield, who's a New Zealand writer, to preserve my sanity, especially with Duterte managing this response to the pandemic and being very like there's just this darkness about him.
Yeah.
And like I think that his authoritarianism and the violence that accompanied it was informed by this deep sense of cynicism that unfortunately has settled into Filipino culture. The sense that there's nothing good in this world, so why don't we just destroy it?
Wow.
And yeah, that
do you feel a lot of that is pervasive, like it's still around and sort of like the current state of like Filipino culture?
I think so, because it's so hard to shake off an authoritarian's ghost. I think it's also why Duterte came into power to begin with, because we hadn't really exorcised the ghost of the Marcos dictatorship. So,
was that in the 80s when that ended?
Yes, it was in the 80s. So after that, like it took a long time for us to, well, I'm not sure if we ever recovered from it. Like we returned to square one as a democracy. I don't think we fully recovered. And there was, like before Duterte, there was Noynoy Aquino, who was like, I think he was doing a good job trying to go after the oligarchs and like the political dynasties in the Philippines. And he like waged a very effective war against corruption. But then people were just like nostalgic for the past and for strongmen whom they believed would clean things up more quickly. But that's not... And I think that it's not limited to the Philippines too.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, because like we're seeing it worldwide right now, and with Trump.
Man, it's just wild to see it unfold, and it's like a wave that's just hitting over the last, I don't know, let's say decade at least. But you mentioned something here. I was looking at my notes, and to bring it back to levity here, we didn't even talk about tango. The idea of tango as a way to process. And before we talk about the car accident, before we talk about other stuff, let's talk about tango for a little bit and how that works its way in, because it's a great piece that you wrote about it.
Thank you. Finally, somebody's talking about that essay. It's like probably one of my favorite essays in the collection.
Tell me about how you find tango and start finding a shape for a piece. Because obviously this is something that you're doing while you're in New Zealand. And how do you construct that piece to make sure that you find that the right tone for what you're trying to say about tango?
Yeah, so that is what they would probably call a braided essay. I've never taken a class in nonfiction, so I just go by vibes but when structuring a work. But when I was learning to dance tango, I knew that I was allowing the past to live like on in my present. And there's this notion in our society that you have to get over the past, that the past does not live in the present time. And although I think that it's not a good thing to be stuck in your past traumas, I don't think it's healthy either to deny the fact that there's so many things about our past that live on in our present lives and in our present societies. So I learned to tango after I broke up with a man who gave me my very first tango lesson. And and I knew it was a stupid thing to do because you have to keep moving forward. But I got curious about this dance and I started to learn it. And I knew that my paternal grandparents, my father's parents, were tango champions in their hometown of Zamboanga in the Philippines. And I kept wondering why I was like obsessed with this dance. Like I was beginning to dance it more professionally, and I was beginning to truly love it. And I kept thinking about why my grandparents were drawn to it. And I also knew about their very fraught relationship and how that damaged my father as a boy. It damaged him, but at the same time, there was also certain parts of their relationship, like my grandmother's insistence on looking at the bright side of things and using humor to live through very difficult situations. So I wrote that essay in part to understand myself and the past that had informed me. And that's why you have that braided structure where I'm learning to dance tango in New Zealand. And at the same time, my grandparents, I'm trying to trace the history of my grandparents and their love of tango. And I feel that since you're talking about structure, I feel that the two braided sections of that essay, like the section with my grandparents and the section with me learning to tango, also dance with each other.
Yeah.
So yeah, and they dance with each other. They also respond to each other, and it's the first braided essay I've written. I think it's the only braided essay I've written so far. And yeah, it's interesting to see how structure enables you to, explore on the page the themes that you want to impart.
Right. That was the great takeaway of that piece. I felt like with the back and forth, as you said, it's an exchange within the piece that allows you to kind of elevate what's happening in real time. And so I, for one, could not tell any vibes. I could tell there was craft happening. So it was pretty awesome. But I did notice something that I wanted to ask you about here. Let me see. I'm just going to quote you, okay? Because it's going to be a little bit easier. In one of the essays, one of your friends named Jean says, in your Filipino class, you were comparing a chapter from Jose Rizal's El Filibusterismo to a Rage Against the Machine song, because they knew you were on a different frequency in a way. Your curiosity was going a whole bunch of different places. And I'd just like to know what that evokes now, just this idea of a young writer, very, very early on, that curious mind. What does that say to you right now, looking back?
I remember that scene that that my friend Jean remembered in high school, and I was embarrassed about. I used to be embarrassed about that moment in high school where I delivered that report and then played a Rage Against the Machine song. I was oh, I was such a pretentious little shit, but but I just love that he remembered that, and he proceeded to criticize our teachers who didn't appreciate the work I had put into that report or my originality. It makes me think about how as you mentioned earlier, the world gives preference to people who lack imagination because these are the people who fall in line. And later on, in life, they fail upwards and they become your superiors. They become authority figures. And they just tamp down on everything that's good in this world, whether it be creativity or just joy. And I believe that we have to fight against that impulse to tamp down on irreverence and creativity and beauty.
Yeah. It's such a beautiful statement. And, I could go on all day asking you to try to give me a couple more bits of inspiration, but I think you've done a phenomenal job of making me feel like there's still hope in the world for sure. But, just to be mindful of your time here, I'm going to ask you just a couple more. Right at the end here, I was thinking of again, My Father and Yadi, which is, as I said, one of my favorite pieces. The brevity of them, I think, is what really got me, how they pack a punch. That in Little Girls, as I said. But there's a line that I really loved, and I think I'm going to be thinking about it for a while. You say, my father loved me, which is why he respected my freedom. He knew his love would shelter me from harm, no matter how far I traveled to reach my dreams. as a father myself, like I have an only child,
Mhm.
and so I think it resonated with me in so many ways, but in particular in the way that hope is transmitted through trust,
Mhm.
and the way a father like trusts his child to go to the ends of the earth. And it seems like that's what you did. You went to the ends of the earth to shape and craft like a version of you that you felt proud of, that you felt like was truly yours. In terms of what this means for you and how you view your father now, did you feel like there was a different way that you saw your father after you finished this?
Um, I feel that what I knew about my father was deepened by my process of like writing this collection. Like I think that I knew these things in my bones, but articulating these feelings on the page brings you to, I guess, like a sharpened understanding of your relationship. So in the case of my father letting me go into the world to live a more expansive life makes me also think about the trust that he placed in the world to take care of his daughter.
Mm.
I mean, I also put myself in dangerous situations, not intentionally. All I
Mhm.
did was like live in like some weird lady's house in New Zealand and cross the street while somebody was like turning into the street, and then like he just didn't stop. So
Mhm.
I mean, things happen, and like we can't control the way the world receives the people we hold dearest. Like I mean, I didn't foresee my father's death, or like that like his body would give way one day. So it's it's very very hard to entrust the world with the people you love, but at the same time, like I guess it's like tango,
Mm.
because when you're dancing, the person who's called the leader doesn't just like dictate what the follower does on the dance floor, what like how she moves. He's also listening to the follower's body and like how she or they respond to the way the leader leads them. So it's like all a conversation, and you have to trust that this person possesses their own magic, that they have their wits about them, and that like they will have their own ways of growing and well understanding the world and taking it all in, that will surpass like any kind of future that you imagine for them.
Mm. Man, that's wonderful. And to wrap it up here, I just have one last one. I could talk to you about this book all day. I mean, I had such a
Oh,
wonderful time
thank
reading it.
you. Thank
Such a
you.
moving and exciting way to just kind of peer into the window of a world that is so different from mine, but yet very, very
Mhm.
similar in many ways. And I can't thank you enough for that. But as a writer who's in the same world that we all are, you're experiencing, emotional hardship, maybe from the political climate all over the world, or maybe you're
Oh.
just trying to get through the next project. I'm curious what you're doing right now to nourish yourself, not just creatively, not just as an artist, but as a human being. What are some things that allow you to continue your craft right now, in this very tense, very
Mhm.
disordered world?
I guess it's like the act of maintaining friendships I've made and the places I've been to, despite the challenges of distance. We have the internet now, so it's easier for me to like keep in touch with my friends in Las Vegas. But just like the act of um, well, checking in with your friends helps me a lot, and like making new friends, because I, I think that that restores my faith in the world. And there like you, I guess there have been many many moments in which I felt like giving up on this world, especially with last week. Oh my god.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not sure if I should go into that, but there was like a way
you say what you need to say.
without endangering my career or my safety. But the way the media was like making us respond culturally to that assassination, for me, wasn't enabling us to process the shock of it.
Sure.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, we weren't processing it in the right way, in a way that made meaning for us, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's by talking to people instead of listening to pundits, or
yes.
Yeah, talking to like people, and like the right people, of course, not people who've been like brainwashed by all this. But but it's by talking to people that you realize that you're not really alone in feeling what you feel. And maybe if you have some disagreements, that's all right. I mean, like, you at least have some things to agree on, and like some shared humanity. You may be like processing on the same wavelength. Yeah, like just being in touch with people, and also being in touch with the non-human world. We often think that like the human world is the only world that exists, but no, like I remember because anyway, you're looking at my Yadi picture. You actually sent this invite to my other Gmail address that's connected with UT, which is like, anyway, that has.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's all right. No. Like I gave you that address, but anyway, it made me think about my profile picture for that account, which is a takahir bird. It's like a big blue and green bird in New Zealand. It's very beautiful. It's also endangered, and it's endemic to New Zealand. And when European colonizers arrived, they introduced species that hunted down the takahir bird to near extinction. But anyway, I took a tour in Zealandia, which is like one of their nature reserves in New Zealand near Wellington. And our tour guide said that the takahir bird, it's very beautiful, but it's not very smart, so it doesn't know how to evade predators. But anyway, when I came home from New Zealand during like one visit, my dad saw a picture of that bird, and he was like, I told him that it's not a very smart bird. And he was like, no, that bird has some intelligence in it and some wisdom. You don't know what kind of intelligence and wisdom this is, but don't dismiss it as stupid. So, and it's only my father could have said something like that to me. So I'm thinking about how we're so dismissive of the non-human world when it's like so complex, and like it just evades our like limited, unimaginative comprehension. So be in touch with nature and your friends. And even if being in touch with nature and the people around you comes in the form of consuming art, like, because like art for me is a way of maintaining a connection with like the human and non-human.
Oh man, Monica, that is a beautiful note to end on. There's so much that I could ask you, but I'm going to let you enjoy the rest of your day. It's been a real pleasure catching up and reading your work. Really, congratulations. I know it's a little belated because this came out a little while back, but it was really moving, just in terms of a celebration of your writing, but a celebration of the relationship between you and your father, and all of these things that we've talked about. I really had a wonderful time reading it. So I really hope that maybe down the road, maybe when the next one comes out, we'll do round 3.
Yeah, I would love to, and I can always expect a thoughtful engagement of with my work from you, Jaime. Like, this was such a nourishing interview.
Oh, that's great to hear. Well, I will let you enjoy the rest of your day, but I'll be in touch on the internet with an episode for you in a short while. But I hope you enjoy the rest of the residency. I hope it's a great time.
Well, thank you. And you enjoy the rest of your day. You have like more hours in the day left.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. Thank you again, Monica, and I hope you have a wonderful time. And I'll talk to you real soon.
You too, Jaime. Thank you so much. I love this conversation.
As did I. Have a good one.
Right, you too. Bye.